Hello and welcome back to the Black Tower, a Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Andrew.
And sitting down from us, courtesy of fancy internet magic, he's a man with a podcast bigger than the Dragon Mount. He's Craig Hanks.
If it were bigger than Dragon Mount, I'd be a lot more famous, and people would see me from miles around. But they don't. Hi, guys.
You cast a shadow on the White Tower itself.
Hey, Craig, why don't you go ahead and introduce the guest that you brought with you?
Yeah, say hi, Kyle.
Hey, what's up?
So,
I can attest that nothing Craig has is bigger than Dragon.
So Kyle,
shots fired.
Kyle and I are from the Legendarium Podcast. I co-founded the Legendarium with a buddy of mine, Ryan, and then Kyle hopped on for our own Wheel of Time series. We did 30 episodes on the Wheel of Time, 31 maybe. And I knew Kyle from work, and sitting next to him, I looked over at his wallpaper on his PC, and it was the Mickey Mouse Wheel of Time logo. And I was like, you and I should have a conversation into microphones. So we did for 30 episodes. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
It was all right.
Whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys just released your 212th episode?
We did.
With Brandon Sanderson as your guest?
Yeah, that was wild. Ryan and I got him to agree to it, basically. I think he's a nice enough guy that if he's got an hour to carve out, he's happy to help out. But when I pitched it to him at a signing a few months ago, I said, hey, how would you like to – I said, I know you like Terry Pratchett. How would you like to talk about something that's not you and not your books? And he was like, yes, please. So he came on and talked about a Terry Pratchett book, and it was an amazing episode, even regardless of the fact that it was, quote unquote, Brandon Sanderson. He was a great panelist, and I think everybody should give it a listen. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, I kind of hope you want people to listen. It'd be kind of weird if it was like yours and you didn't want anybody to listen. Here's a new episode. Please don't listen.
Look, there are some episodes that we've done that I would say that about. Yeah, please do not listen to episode number. I won't say which ones, but yeah, that's a thing for sure.
Yeah, I just love that we can get a podcast like your guys, like the Legendarium, that's been around for a while. That's over 200 episodes on for us, and as we're talking, we're recording our 16th actual episode. I kind of like geek out about stuff like that. It's like, no way,
right.
Yes. Well,
no, it's been awesome. It's been like 5 years. Literally, it's been now 5 years since we started airing. So it's 200 episodes, hard fought for, I guess, but still going strong.
Yeah, and I feel like the episodes you guys do are, I want to say, timeless, because I go back and listen to them when I'm reading a series that they're talking about, because you cover a bunch of different series, whatever you have planned for that time. You're not like, there's a bunch, like, we're a Wheel of Time podcast. Other people can be a Game of Thrones podcast or whatever, but you guys cover whatever you want to. So like right now I'm reading the second part of the Mistborn trilogy, the Wax and Wane, and I'm listening to that series of podcasts you guys recorded like 2016 or something. And
yeah, it's been a little while.
But it doesn't feel like it's old. It feels like I can go back and listen to whatever I want to whenever I want.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, because that's exactly what we go for. Like, the entire idea when we started with Lord of the Rings, and the idea was if somebody, they've tried to read it before and they had a hard time, or maybe it's their first time through and they just want kind of like a book club feel to go along with them. Like, that was the idea, and that's the idea we've carried through into every series we've done. And so, like, if people go to our website and look under the series tab, there's a whole bunch of different series that we've done. And so, like you said, you should be able to pick up wherever. The only thing I would caution people on is that with the Sanderson episodes, with the Cosmere episodes, we were, as we got to the later episodes, we weren't as careful as we maybe should have been with some spoilers for other books. And so just exercise some caution there. But other than that, like all the other series, I think are really safe. Like with the Wheel of Time, you guys, like in this episode, I know we're going to be spoiling the entire series, and so anybody listening obviously would want to know that. But the way we did it was a spoiler-free read-through where we would finish each book and then do 2 episodes on that book. So we would only spoil up through whatever we'd read to kind of like give people that either a feeling of
Reading along and following along, book club style.
Or if it's like, I'm an old hand with Wheel of Time, that would, listening to those episodes is like, oh yeah, that's kind of what it felt like to read it for the first time. Mm-hmm. Kind of what we were going for.
Right.
It feels like the first time.
Nice. Talking about that, why don't you guys go ahead and give us our official spoiler warning so we can kick this off?
Okay, well, official spoiler warning. Today we're talking about Egwene, but we're talking about Egwene throughout the entirety of the series. So if you have not read The Wheel of Time, proceed with caution.
Spoiler. Egwene is a character in this book.
Stuff happens to Egwene, turns out, and that stuff has consequences. And we're going to talk about those.
All right. So like Greg said, we are talking about Egwene and specifically the topic of her captivity. She was taken captive twice that we are thinking about specifically, once by the Shanchan and then another time by the White Tower, Aes Sedai.
Under Elida. Under Elida as the Amerlin Sea.
Yeah. So we're going to give a little bit of background about what happens. And then we've kind of asked everybody to have maybe something a little bit to talk about, a couple of points or thoughts. But starting off in...
Why don't we start with the Shanchan?
Yeah, starting off in the Great Hunt. There's a certain point where Egwene, Nynaeve, Min, they're all kind of whisked away from the White Tower by Leandrin and, to help Rand. But they arrive and they're ambushed and they're taken captive by the Shanchan, the High Lady Surath specifically. And Egwene and Min end up captured. Egwene gets collared by a Suldam, and they are taken to Flamme, where the Shanchan are training Demane, and they use something called an idam, which is a collar connected by a leash to a bracelet. It can deliver pain, control what a person does, and keep them from channeling or force them to channel. And we kind of get introduced to this whole thing that the Shanchan have a different philosophy about the one power, that instead of like the Aes Sedai, who think it shouldn't be used as a weapon in warfare, they are perfectly happy killing people and fighting armies against armies with the one power, and they are forcing people, even Aes Sedai that they capture, to do that with the idam, which kind of tells me that it's powerful enough, that connection is powerful enough to override the oaths that they took. Andrew, I think that's about all I have to say.
I definitely agree. So after she is captured, the Shanchan discover that Egwene is very strong in the earth element of Sadir, and only keeps getting stronger. She learns a ton of new weaves as part of her captivity, and things that the Aes Sedai would never teach her, as it would be seen as a sort of violation of the 3 oaths that Aes Sedai take, because the weaves she learns are combat oriented. These are like battle weaves, is what I like to think of them. I think that's a badass name. Here's a battle weave.
That's actually what I wear in my hair on weekends.
But naturally, this kind of fosters. Yeah, you're fine. Naturally, this fosters like a deep hatred in Egwene for the Shanchan, and throughout the rest of the series, almost all of her reactions to anything related to the Shanchan are influenced by this hatred and any sort of captivity and forcing people to do this or that. Egwene is eventually rescued from her enslavement by a combined effort of Nynaeve and Elaine and Min and a captured Soldam. But the jailbreak and the wonders the girl discovers is the high and mighty Soldam can be controlled using an Adam, which means they can learn to channel, which makes them Martha Domain, which is old tongue for those who must be leashed, which is a secret that could prove devastating to the way the Shan-Chan Empire works. Because any woman that can channel and is not currently under the control of a Soldam by via of the Adam is seen as a Martha Domain.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a huge crack in their foundation for their entire nation and everything. Like their entire belief system is reliant on this one piece of equipment that can control women that can channel, and the fact that the women that are controlling this can then channel themselves. I mean, it's such a huge secret that they discover, and which kind of makes the whole treatment of Egwene and treatment of these women in general even more egregious and just pisses you off even more, because it's people that are exactly like them that are doing this to the women that can channel.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's something I think that's a good way to think about this is we all know now from having read the series and with the companion coming out and exploring the kind of prehistory of what we see in the Wheel of Time series is that Alter Pendrag Tonreal, better known in legend as Alter Hawkwing, hated the Aes Sedai vehemently, even to the point where he was dying. He was like, yeah, they can heal me and save me, but nah, piss off, don't touch me. Satan, be gone. And we know that his son led the armada or the naval forces that moved into Tremel King, into what is now the Shan-Chan territory. And that's where they claim the High Blood to be descendants of Arthur Pendrag Tonreal. And surely his son carried over that hatred of Aes Sedai. So that's going to carry over to anybody that can channel and use the one power, that hatred. And I think that's where a lot of this, they have to be leashed, they have to be controlled. They cannot be trusted on their own. Someone has to control them. And it really does this demeaning thing where it turns these women that can channel into literal pets. Like the Soldam give them new names. They pat them on the head, give them treats when they do good things. They punish them when they do bad things. They literally are treated like dogs. I mean, even to the leash and collar. So I think it's important to know that bit of backstory for those that maybe haven't looked too much at the before what we see in the series right now, backstory with Alter Hawkwing and his son and his daughter, but mainly, of course, his son.
Yeah, I mean, and throughout the series, they refer back to that, right? Because the whole imperial family is descendants of Arthur Hawkwing, and so they're saying like, oh, this is my blood, right? And it's interesting that hatred has just been passed down. I'd be curious to know your guys's kind of reaction to when you first read that and you first realized that women who could channel were doing this to other women who could channel. Like, what was your reaction to that as a reader?
I had to go back and read it again a couple times because it wasn't very clear to me exactly what had happened. So I had to read it again, and it really kind of shocked me. Even though I should have been shocked by the fact that they were doing this to anybody in the first place. You know, that's what really should have upset me, but it it does seem like it added some weight to the fact that they were doing it to themselves.
Well, I think you're right, Aaron. There's this idea that that you can be a traitor to your own fill in the blank, right. Race, religion, gender, whatever, and that does make it like, I think, like on a visceral tribal level, it can make it more egregious, more objectionable what these women are doing to each other. But as you say, when it comes right down to it, it's not objectionable for that reason. It's objectionable because these are human beings doing it to other human beings. It wouldn't be okay if not the Damani, what are the other ones called? If the Suldam couldn't channel, that wouldn't make it okay. But for some reason, it gives us that kind of like tribalistic gut punch when we think about like, well, hang on, you guys are supposed to be working together because you're the same. But ultimately, nope, it's just awful all the way around.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things, and I've said this many times before, and this is just a personal kind of way I try to conduct myself by virtue of my beliefs, well, not really beliefs, but studies that I've done, is from a modern morality, from that kind of free westernized society type morality, is it's obviously wrong. And we see this, and I think it's meant to be shocking and abhorrent to those that read the series. But there's also that part of me that looks at it and tries to put myself in the shoes of the Shan-Chan culture. And literally from their founding, they've been taught anybody that can do these things is bad. They're horrible. They're going to try to do bad things to you if you're not controlled, kept at arm's length. So where I could never agree with subjecting another human being to any kind of treatment like this, I don't think any rational human being could. I can understand where their culture is coming from by virtue of their legends, their history, their upbringing, and their founding. And to be fair, the Shan-Chan have seen an enormous success as an empire. They've eliminated Trollocs and Shadowspawn in their entirety within their own land borders. Thank you, dog, for shaking your head. My dog is shaking her head at me. But I mean, none of it excuses how they have come by it. But it's that overall culture that the Shan-Chan have that I think it's meant to be drastic. It's meant to be jarring. It's meant to be one of those things where you look at them as, you know, people are calling the IL savages, but these people are the real savages. They are literally putting women in collars, on leashes, and treating them like dogs. Which, again, is horrible.
Like you say, Andrew, understanding is important, but understanding is not agreement. Understanding is not acceptance. But yeah, it's important to understand a culture's motivations for something. And like you guys spelled out a few minutes ago when you were talking about kind of the history of the Shan-Chan and all that, yeah, you can see why this happened to their culture. But all the other characters, you know, the characters in the Western lands, I guess we just call it Randland, all the characters from those societies where this kind of slavery didn't exist are rightly horrified and want to do away with it. I know I would.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's pure culture clash, right? You have these people that they're not exactly like, especially like we see in what I like to call the hillbilly hick zone of Randland. I'm Southern. I grew up in like the hillbilly area. I'm fine. Nobody get offended, please. But you know, you're more Southern kind of backwoods, small town, we're to ourselves, don't know anything kind of thing. They only have rumors and kind of legends and tales of Aes Sedai, so they're not very trusting, and you find that throughout the entirety of Randland. But still, the Aes Sedai have a position of almost prestige about them, whether it's that kind of fearful reverence or whatever have you. But it's a very stark culture clash. I mean, I think it's equally as stark a culture clash as Randland is with the IL.
Well, maybe if it's all right, I would like to kind of zoom in again on Egwene and what she goes through with all this. Because I'll just give you a little bit of background from me personally. I read the Wheel of Time. I read the first 9 books years and years ago, and then I got hung up on Crossroads of Twilight. It will shock no one to hear. And then, you know, read it again for the podcast. But in the intervening years between when I did it the first time and second time, I'd forgotten a lot of little plot points and big plot points. But the captivity of Egwene as a Damani was the image that stuck with me the very most from the entire first 9 books. So when we started reading again, that's the only thing I was that I could recall with a lot of clarity. And I think it's because of, kind of the stuff that we've talked about before about how horrifying it is. That kind of comes naturally. But Robert Jordan did an amazing job in writing it to be horrifying, kind of getting inside Egwene's head and helping you see how despairing she was in her situation until she decided, that she was going to take matters into her own hands, and she was freed and able to regain that liberty that she needed. Anyway, but he did such an amazing job that's the only thing that really stuck with me. It's an amazing passage, and if anybody reads it and is unaffected by it, they probably have some issues.
Yeah, when you talk about that, the scene that always comes to mind, and every time I think about Egwene's captivity with the Shan-Chan, is the scene where the chapter ends from Egwene's perspective as her Soldam, or Soldamain, because pronunciation is hard for me, apparently, has noticed that she's been channeling on her own without permission. And Min is forced out of where she's being held in Falme. And Min is literally almost in tears, wants to do everything she can, but knows she can do nothing, as she's forced to walk away while she hears Egwene screaming as she's being punished for her, channeling without permission. And that, to me, that's a really heartbreaking scene.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Craig's point and to your point, like just the idea of you can really empathize with Egwene, and I think that's where the brilliance of this this whole passage comes in, is that we as the readers are experiencing it as Egwene is experiencing it. So in a lesser extent, you're feeling it happen to yourself. Now, I'll be the first person to say that I hate Egwene. I do not like Egwene at all.
I'm right there with you.
One of my least favorite characters, but she's an extremely well-written character. She's an extremely powerful character.
I want to have her babies.
Yeah, Craig wants to have Egwene's baby. But especially this scene, I mean, you've got to feel and fight for Egwene, and just the torture that she goes through, both physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. I mean, it is really hard to read because you feel it as a reader.
It's almost one of those things where you wonder about Robert Jordan a little bit. You think about, like, how did you come up with this thing that was the perfect torture mechanism for a woman like this? Like, I mean, I'm mostly being facetious, but a little bit. It's like, dude, where did this come from, man?
Who hurt you, RJ? Who did this to you?
Exactly.
But yeah, I know, Aaron, you had some thoughts on this. So I don't know, what do you kind of think about getting into this Egwene's captivity with the Shan-Chan?
Well, I think before, we've talked a lot about its impact on her emotionally, and a little bit about how it impacts her down the road. But I think there are some silver linings. I'm not going to say that they're good things, but there's some silver linings here. And the one that I really pull out the most is that she learns some things, and she learns some behaviors, and some weaves that maybe she wouldn't have learned studying at the White Tower, even if she had become a member of the Green Aja, or the Battle Aja. She studying under the Shan-Chan, she loses some of the hesitance that a lot of the other Aes Sedai have when they start doing battle magic, for lack of a better term.
The battle weave.
The battle
you
weave.
mean, like, because of her time with the Shan-Chan? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it kind of removes the mental block that the White Tower trained Aes Sedai have, partially because of the Three Oaths, partially because of how they're kind of raised in their power is that it's only to be used for good. It's for healing. It's for creating. Those types of things are what I feel are taught at the White Tower. And, the Shan-Ten are like, it's bad. It's evil. We kill people with it.
You know what it kind of reminds me of after having read the full series is Egwene's experience just from a strictly channeling and power standpoint. So we're not talking about any of the captivity or any of the abuse that was taking place, but her experience while she was with the Shan-Ten from a power perspective, it almost feels like the Ashiman at the Black Tower. They talk about a lot in the book about how, especially Aes Sedai, talk about how you can't force people to grow in the power, how dangerous that is, how you can burn yourself out. I mean, that's exactly the tactics that Mazrim Taim takes with all of the Ashiman. He forces them to basically hold and use as much of the power as they can at all times. And this is basically what was happening to Egwene while she was in captivity, under the influence of the Idam, is that they were just making her channel. They were making her do weaves that she didn't even know she was capable of. She was learning them. And what happens after she escapes is she realizes she's leveled up in the power several times. She can channel a lot more of the power after this than she was able to before, because they were basically forcing her progression. Again, in a completely horrific way. So I'm not saying that it was good, but
it was advantageous.
It was advantageous in hindsight. And like I said, it really reminded me of how Mazrim Taim was training all of the Ashiman, who also, isn't the greatest of people or influences. And so there's kind of that interesting dynamic, or that interesting parallel between Mazrim Taim and the Shan-Ten Empire and their tactics.
And it's a good way for Robert Jordan to speed things up a little bit, because so just to give you guys a little background, I just finished New Spring for the very first time. We're going to be recording our episode on that a little bit later tonight. But in New Spring, he makes it a little more clear that when an Aes Sedai gains the shawl, it's still going to be 5 or 10 years before she attains her full potential in the power, because they've got to keep working with it and keep pushing their boundaries, and it takes quite a while. And so Moiraine and Swan are looking forward to that. But in this story, the Wheel of Time proper, it takes place in such a short amount of time. He needed his characters to level up. Mm-hmm. And so this was not just a powerful way for him to put Egwene through something horrific, but a clever way for him to get those level ups that Kyle's talking about. Really, really smart stuff.
Right. And to the point where over the course of, 2 or 3 years that the series takes place, Egwene goes from the apprentice to a backwoods country wisdom to the Amaryllis seat, who is a match for Mazrim Taim, and becomes, I think, the ascendant warrior. I'm like I said, I'm in
mixed up theories.
I'm in Brandon Sanderson, but Brandon Sanderson wrote the end of this series, and I connected those 2 points yesterday when I was thinking about it. But she became that powerful by the end that she was this great symbol to it was like every Aes Sedai everywhere was looking up to her.
I feel like you need to insert like the very beginning of the Halo theme. We talk about like the Ascendant Warrior. Right. That's all I heard. Like you said, Ascendant Warrior. And,
yeah, I mean, and part of that too, like to Craig's point and to your point, that she is ascending and she's becoming more powerful, and there is kind of this hierarchy within the Aes Sedai that they defer to those with more power. But another part of the reason that Egwene is able to become the Amaryllis seat has absolutely nothing to do with her ability to channel and her strength in the power. I think that helps, but what she learns in captivity from the Shan-Ten is to basically dig in, and she, first of all, she's super stubborn, being from the Two Rivers and just being the way that she is. But she is able.
So hot.
she's able to rely on herself and believe in herself. Because I would even say, you guys mentioned that she was captured with the Shan-Chen and she was captured in the White Tower later on in the series. But I would even argue that there was a third time where the sisters in Saladar basically capture her and try to use her as a puppet. Now, it's not the same sense of being a straight up prisoner with a collar on, or a prisoner in the sense that she was in the White Tower, but she absolutely, for those first months in the Saladar, didn't have any agency. She had to do exactly what those sisters were trying to do, and she was able to figure out how to manipulate the situation to her advantage, and eventually become the Amyrlin seat because of it. And a lot of that has to do with her resolve that she has gained through her time with the Shan-Chen.
That's a good point. I hadn't seen it that way.
Yeah. And I think that brings, if you don't mind me cutting in, one of the points I wanted to make was beyond the pure, I hate to say it, but theatrics and I don't mean entertainment in a positive way, but entertainment for the reader of her Captivity with the Shan-Chen, to me, it serves a plot function that I think Robert Jordan was trying to get at for this Captivity. And the Egwene we meet coming out of the Two Rivers is very, very headstrong, very kind of like, I think most people describe her as like very bratty, very kind of, I don't want to say sure of herself, but yeah, just headstrong. And then she finds out that she can channel, and she kind of gets this, what I always took as an overinflated sense of self-importance, because Moraine is telling her that, you have a lot of power, a lot of latent potential that's going to, come out. We're going to train you, and you could be an amazingly powerful Aes Sedai. But I think this Captivity with the Shan-Chen plays an important function in the development of Egwene's character, which I don't think many people would argue. But so Egwene goes from finding out she's special, meaning that she can channel, to finding a safe space or place in the White Tower, to very quickly being betrayed by someone who was supposed to be a teacher and a protector, being Liandrin, after she's charged by Suan as the Amyrlin to hunt the Black Aja. And after that, she is subjected to what is arguably or not arguably, really, the worst possible situation. And for that one true time since being in Emond's Field and the Two Rivers to finding out she can channel, she is, for the first time, 100% truly and inescapably powerless, even with her immense strength inside air. And we see her fret about this and freak out about this for a little while. In the books, it only takes, a couple dozen pages maybe. And then she calms down, and she realizes that she's got to be delicate, that she's got to figure this out, that she's got to take control of herself, that she can't afford to freak out and lose her mind if she hopes to get away from this. And once she's able to think logically and calmly, it allows her to use her captivity instead of being used. So she learns, she starts lightly poking and learning that more fine control of the weaves of the power that maybe she hasn't learned as a novice in the White Tower. And to me, it's an incredible plot tool that Robert Jordan has used with this Captivity, not just for that, allowing her to level up in her power in the One Power, which sounds weird to say, but into level up Egwene as a character. And this, to me, this is what makes her where she's able to be receptive to her treatment with the IL, and ultimately to be the kind of person that becomes the Amyrlin seat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think if you apply that lens to all three of her times of captivity, with the Shan-Chen, with the I said the Little White Tower and the Big White Tower, if you want to view it that way, every time she gets captured, it's like she goes through that evolution and comes out improved and changed on the other end. There's a noticeable difference after she's rescued from the Shan-Chen, after she decides to take control and to not be a puppet with the White Tower in exile, who names her Amerlin, and then in her captivity in the White Tower proper, you see a very different Egwene at that point, who is she's like evolved all the way into the image of the Amerlin. Like, this is the way that I'm going to act, this is the way that I'm going to behave, and it doesn't matter if I'm behind bars, it doesn't matter if they're pumping me full of fork root, I'm going to be the Amerlin.
Well, it's almost like she goes through the stages of grief, because immediately upon her release from being a prisoner of the Shan-Chan, she just unleashes ever-living hell on the Shan-Chan soldiers. She's like, you know what? You guys taught me this. It's time to use it. Kaboom. Kapow. To use, Batman comic sound effects.
Nice.
But she's literally like using these flows of earth and fire that she's been forced to learn from the Shan-Chan and blowing up Shan-Chan soldiers. And Nynaeve is seeing the weaves and learning them from her, as is Elaine, and they're all just wreaking havoc, and you're like, oh shit, like, they're actually really fucking strong. But after that, Egwene is kind of forced to press through kind of like the stages of grief. She's forced to kind of get over her anger and learn from it. And to me, that's what makes her an Aes Sedai well before her time.
Well,
which to me completely warrants that whole, you are now the Amerlin seat and an Aes Sedai.
That kind of leads into something I wanted to mention, which is that that's all these awesome new battle weaves and stuff. Those aren't the only things that the Shan-Chan imparted. There's also the psychological stuff that she carried with her for the rest of the series. And I wanted to point out, one of my favorite things about Egwene is the fear that she carries with her through the rest of the series. Her fear of captivity. And if you watch you watch some dime a dozen action movie, or something with like the wise mentor or something, he's always trying to get the Karate Kid to move past fear. Like, fear is your enemy, fear will undo you. And I think that's baloney, personally. But in Egwene's case, what she does is, instead of like conquering her fear, instead of getting rid of her fear, she channels it, she uses it. And that fear of captivity, does that make sense? Like, she is deathly terrified of getting that collar on again, but she uses that as fuel instead of letting it kind of freeze her in certain situations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say combine her fear of captivity and experiencing that same thing again, combined with her just inherent ambition. She kind of uses the two to make sure that she is always in control of her own situation, or at least as much as she can be. And in this sense, it means if I'm going to be in control of the situation, I got to be the Amerlin seat. I got to get all the way up to there. And
so that nobody else can tell me what to do or control my life.
Because at that point, when you're king of the hill, basically, there is an inherent fear that comes with that as well. But at the same time, she's calling all the shots, even to the point where she feels confident enough to challenge the Dragon Reborn and, get a bunch of nations behind her, because she is fearful of the ultimate ending, which is Tarmangaiden and the last battle that's going to happen and all of that. She's fearful that Rand's going to make the wrong decision. She wants to be in charge. She doesn't want things to go the way, to go awry. And so she's trying to control the situation, because I think the lack of control that she experiences when she first gets that collar put on her is what sticks with her and is really what defines her character. And to Craig's point, she carries that with her all the way through to the end.
Yeah, and something I wanted to mention was that I thought it's kind of shifting, but her mistrust of Rand and the inability to understand what he's been through, having been through something similar, and how the fear of going back in the box kind of colors his whole life, all the way up until a certain point anyways. And he's always acting out of that fear, and she doesn't understand it. She can't understand him. She can't understand what he's doing. And it's a little disappointing for me that she can't seem to recognize that same lasting fear of imprisonment in somebody else, especially somebody that she grew up with.
Well, I love Egwene. I am second to no one in my love for Egwene, but if there's one thing she lacks throughout the entire series, it's sympathy for anybody else. I mean, it's not that she has none, but that is one of her faults, I suppose.
And actually, Aaron, I'm really glad that you brought up the box, because the box is the same scene for me that this Egwene Captivity is for Craig. That
the thing you remember.
The thing that I remember the most. And part of that is because when he breaks out of the box, all hell breaks loose, and it's Demise Wells, and it's freaking badass. But the part leading up to that is probably the most influential piece of writing that I've ever read for myself, because of all the psychological, emotional turmoil that's happening right there. And it really is pretty interesting when you put the two next to each other to compare Egwene's captivity to Rand's captivity, and that they can't quite recognize that in each other until Rand becomes Zen Rand at the end and is basically Jesus and can empathize and feel for everybody. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess I should have said
that,
to be fair, it goes both ways. It should go both ways.
Yeah. Well, I got two things on that. One is probably going to be a little bit of comedic relief, but I feel like such a pleb because my most memorable scene is in Fires of Heaven with the sex igloo. So, but on the topic is
it's
having read.
It's even better in real life, Andrew.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I'm gonna have to make me a trip to a snowy area.
Things get cold, they get hot.
Yeah. But on the note of the relationship between Egwene and Rand, is having read the series and looking back on their interactions in the Eye of the World, is they never to me now seem like a actual functional potential couple. That it was that expectation of them being a couple that made them be a couple, because neither one had that much issue relinquishing the other as a potential like romantic partner. It was more of a, we've known each other all our lives. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you either kind of thing. But it never really seemed like that true love kind of connection to go like freaking days of our lives romantic on it, I guess.
No, I think that's a legitimate thing to talk about. Sorry, go on. I've got something to add.
Oh, no, you're fine. But to me, that continues throughout, that I never really saw Egwene and Rand as really that close. They might have been close in terms of the two rivers of Emond's Field, but they were that close only because of their limited scope of the world. And obviously, Rand being the Dragon Reborn, Egwene ultimately becoming the full or the true Amyrlin seat, it was inevitable that there was going to be this big divide between them, where Egwene was going to confront Rand as the Dragon Reborn, and you're going to see this, 180 from, yeah, we were all but promised to each other, and now it's you need to cut your shit, Rand, and Rand be like, who the fuck are you talking to? And it's, reading the series and looking back, I see it now. And that's one of the great things I love about the series is you read it, you look back, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's so my wife and I met through a mutual friend that she was actually dating at the time. And
you dog.
I know. I was.
Did you break the bro code?
No, actually, no. That's kind of my point. Eventually, is that I didn't. So I knew him really, really well. He and I were like best friends at that point, and then I got to know her. And as I got to know her, I was like, oh, they'll never last. It's fine. And like, I knew I wanted to date her, and I knew I wanted to marry her. But I was like, it's fine. I can just chill out and bide my time because I know that it's not going to last. Like, once I got to know both of them, I knew it wasn't going to work. And it turns out I was right. I'm pretty smart that way, I guess. But what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, but it made sense, like, in their lives at the time. Like, it made sense for them to kind of be together. But then once you really drilled down into their characters, no, it was never going to work. And it's the exact same way with Rand and Egwene. Like, they're the same age. They live in the same town. They're cool kids, and they're going to get together. And it just makes sense situationally. But on a personality level, once that situation is taken away, nope, doesn't make sense anymore.
All the other kids with the pumped up kicks.
Yeah.
I'm unmuted. My bad.
Yeah, you're not muted there, Andrew.
Awkward.
From my personal experience, that kind of rings something with me, is that growing up in a small town where you kind of know everybody, everybody knows you, and everybody has the same friends, and you kind of grow up with all these people. It's interesting now, 30 years down the road, I can look back and see that all of the people who everybody thought was going to end up together, they were like, oh, these two people, they're perfect for each other. They're not together. Or if they did get married, it didn't last. But a lot of people, especially like myself, I ended up married to this girl who I've known my whole life, and everybody would be like, oh, they will kill each other. If they ever get together, they'll be terrible for each other. And, I feel like we have a pretty loving and stable relationship. And I just think it's funny how that expectation that gets placed on you when you're younger and growing up doesn't translate into your adult life, like, ever.
Yeah, we here at the Black Tower love Mrs. Ayers.
Well, she's very loving and understanding and lets me record my podcasts.
Oh, yeah. So you definitely got to tell her that in a sisterly form that I send my love.
Yeah. Back off there, Andrew.
But I said sisterly, all right?
In the way I said I use it because it's more meaningful.
Well,
yeah, not pillow friends, but sisters.
She thinks the whole series is silly. She won't read it.
I hate to break it to you guys, as somebody who also loves it, it's a little silly.
It is.
But that's okay.
I refuse to believe it. Do not burst my bubble. But going back to Egwene, I think we've talked a good bit about her captivity with the Shan-Chan and the effects. So I think we should move on to her captivity in the White Tower with the little bit of time we have left, because I know we're getting close on time.
Yeah, do it.
So with I'm referencing obviously Egwene's captivity with the White Tower with Elaida as the Amerlin seat for the physical White Tower in Tar Valon. So Egwene is captured after turning the harbor change for the North and South harbors into Quellander. She's declared a Novus again by Elaida, but refused to accept it. One second. Sorry, the dog was going nuts for a second. Anyway, but she refused to accept being a Novus and asserts herself as the true Amerlin seat, and winds up being punished frequently after showing disrespect to the Aes Sedai and Elaida, whom she considers to be a false Amerlin. And this actually gains her a fair amount of respect of the many Aes Sedai that are in the tower. But it's crazy because she even foresaw the Shan-Chan attack on Tar Valon, but her foreseeing, dreaming, was ignored at the order of Elaida. But all of her punishment was ignored. It had no effect. It was considered laughable by Egwene, thanks to her time with the Aiel Wise Ones and paying for her tow to them. This was nothing compared to what she had to endure with them. So during the Shan-Chan attack on the White Tower, she carried out the main defense despite being dosed with fork root and unable to channel more than a trickle. She organized novices and taught them to form circles or links that the Shan-Chan could not break, making them immune to shielding and capture. She taught them to travel, and she used traveling to raid the White Tower storerooms for Sa'angreal, taking the White Rod for herself, an immensely powerful Sa'angreal. She cleared several domain from within the tower and began shooting down numerous Torekin, helping to destroy a third of the Shan-Chan forces, who at that point withdrew, obviously having captured Alida at this point and withdrawing with her. During this attack, or right after the attack, she was unwillingly rescued by Suan and some forces from the rebel camp, which I remember her talking to Suan and being like, "Why did you rescue me? I was that close to having the entire tower on my side." But the whole start to finish of her captivity in the White Tower under Alida, it could not be possible, I don't think, without her captivity with the Shan-Chan and without her time with the IL Wise Ones.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the thing that stands out the most is that what you talked about, how she was doused with fork root and she couldn't channel. And so all of this badassery that is going on is just straight up Egwene for the most part. It's just her character and her resolve, like we were talking about, and her unwillingness to lose. And she just basically wills this battle to be won. And this is coming from a self-proclaimed Egwene hater. You got to just give her the high five on this one, because she kills it. I mean, she is a fantastic force to be reckoned with. As much as I hate her as a individual, because I have a lot of issues with her, the way that she treats people, she is a straight up badass.
She is as powerful as it is said. Actually, one of the things that drove me kind of crazy as I was reading through the entire series was that every time you learn about a new woman who could channel, if it's Egwene or Elaine or Nynaeve or whoever, each one seems to be more powerful than the last. And they even pick up the girl that they pick up, was it with the
kin?
Yeah, who's even more powerful than all of them.
Alana.
And anyway, so every woman is more beautiful than the last. Every channeler is more powerful than the last. Every swordsman is more skilled than the last. And so I was getting more and more frustrated with this as the series goes on. And then this attack on the tower happens. And like Kyle says, I was really grateful at this point that he took away that aspect of Egwene and let her personality be kind of her superpower. Because it was, how annoying for me was it? It was certainly noticeable that everything was building up too much, like everybody was a Superman. So I was really glad that he let that go for that battle.
Right. And if you think about, if you play a lot of video games, as you're progressing through a story, the challenges get more and more challenging. But because there's more and more power, the characters that are come alongside you as NPCs get more and more powerful. And I think that's part of what he's done here, even though he probably wasn't thinking about video games when he did it, guessing on when it was written. But that's what I see, and that's part of what the reader's lens kind of imparts into the story as you read it. But it is extremely frustrating that as you go through the thing, it's like all this. Oh, here's Katsuyane, and she's the most legendary of all of them, and you were like, well, that was out of left field. But I do think back to what Andrew was talking about during her imprisonment. It's almost like it struck me that her treatment at the hands of the Aes Sedai seems to be even more brutal and abusive than it was at the hands of the Shan-Chan, who basically hated her.
Oh yeah, dude, for sure. And I mean, and going back to you talking about like people getting, everyone's more powerful than the last. being the nerd that I am, it makes me think of like, different anime or cartoons, whatever you want to call them. Things like Dragon Ball Z, where everybody's forever getting more powerful and never dampen. Naruto, everybody's getting forever more powerful and never dampen. One Piece, whatever have you, Superman, Supergirl, whatever. And to me, things like this are a bit of a rarity, where you have this person that you've known from literally the first book. The first book is going to be insanely powerful. And at her second biggest shining moment, Robert Jordan rips away 99% of her power and leaves her with 1%. And she outshines everybody, not only in her ability to channel, because this is where she has to use her wit rather than her strength, but in her battle tactics and her strategy. And to me, this is when Egwene fully shows herself as someone that is fully capable to handle the stole of the Amerlin Sea. To me, this is the point where Egwene fully realizes and becomes the true Amerlin Sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think what kind of comes to mind is the if you're talking about it in a business sense or like from a career pathing standpoint, where you're wanting to climb the ladder, and they always say like basically perform the job that you want. So like before you get promoted, you're basically doing the job that you're getting promoted for, and you've been doing it for 6 months, a year, 2 years before that promotion actually comes. And Egwene is just basically being the Amerlin before the White Tower fully, like the divided White Tower fully recognizes her as the Amerlin. She just is. The Amerlin isn't necessarily a title that's bestowed upon her. It's a title that she claims by simply living the way and acting the way that an Amerlin should.
Definitely.
Yep.
I know we're getting close on time. Craig, I see you have a point here that you've kind of given us a little tidbit on, and I think it's a great point to kind of work on, kind of winding down and ending this podcast on. If you would like to go ahead and discuss it.
Well, I was curious. Maybe you could give me a little bit of background on the title of this episode. We're talking about how Egwene says, "I will not be a victim." But then there's a little subtitle here. Egwene is not a victim of her capture. Was this like a listener submission or something like that?
So the "I will not be a victim" title kind of came from me, not to claim like ownership or any kind of like whatever to it, but to me it encompasses the overall feeling of this episode. It's like I know you're going to talk about your point, and I don't want to steal any thunder, but Egwene is subjected to these captivities, these trials, these tribulations, whatever you want to call it. And instead of taking it and just curling into a ball and saying, "I'm done, I just can't deal with life," she embraces it in the end and uses everything that happens to her as a way to kind of further herself and her goals, and she grows from it.
Yeah.
So she may be a victim, but how she acts out of it is, I will not be a victim.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So I looked up the definition of a victim mentality. And so I pulled this off of Wikipedia. It says a victim mentality is an acquired personality trait in which a person tends to recognize themselves as a victim of the negative actions of others and to behave as if this were the case in the face of contrary evidence of such circumstances. So what Egwene could do is, after her captivity, continue to obsess over it and allow the Shan-Chan to continue to dominate her life, and to see everything that happens to her, even after her time with the Shan-Chan, as their fault or, somehow directly attributable to them. But she doesn't. She sidesteps that. So it's if you're saying Egwene is not a victim, my counter would be, no, she absolutely 100% is a victim. But what she doesn't do is fall prey to a victim mentality, which if you give in to a victim mentality, what you're doing is continuing that cycle of giving away your agency, or not giving away, but having it taken away. And then that shifts into you kind of on some level giving it away yourself. So she refuses to give away her agency, even though it would make a lot of sense for her to continue obsessing about that over the fact. And so this is one of the reasons that I like Egwene so much. I know Kyle isn't ready to settle down with her, but I am because of this sort of thing.
I love Egwene as a character.
Yeah, I know.
I hate Egwene as a person.
Well, it's similar to the way that I like you as a co-panelist on my show.
Right.
But I hate you as a person.
Exactly.
Right.
That's exactly what I feel for
Okay.
Egwene. So as long as you understand.
Yeah, we're clear. Okay. Right on.
So I want to point out here that while she does consciously kind of reject that victim mentality, she has to do it over and over and over again because it keeps trying to pop back up into her life. Anytime that she hears about the Shan-Chan, or that they're capturing women who can channel, or anything to do with them, or she has a dream, she has a fear reaction, and she has to go, you know what, I'm going to think about it logically, or I'm going to think about what it is that is the best for us to do, and not operate based on the fear. I mean, she uses her fear, but she doesn't let it control her. And we see that all the way up, I think, until A Memory of Light, where the Shan-Chan woman, who she had her name changed to like Lewin Shipless or something, and the Baal Doman come into her camp and like pledge themselves to her to try and make themselves feel better about the bad things that they've done, or the failings that they had, rather. But you see her reaction to the shot, her recoiling and her fear reaction all the way up till that point. And I think it's not until she gets to know one of them a little better and see that they are people just like her and there are good ones, that she kind of gets over that ingrained fear response at every interaction with them.
Yeah. And I mean, you hear a lot to parallel, kind of, to not go into detail, but the parallel to real world is no fan of the Wheel of Time is a stranger to the concept that the Wheel of Time is an incredibly feministic series. We're not going to talk about whether you agree or disagree with it, but Egwene could definitely be seen as one of those kind of feministic, empowering individuals that is forced to undergo tons of struggles, tons of really super shitty situations, and she comes out on top every time. That she uses her dark times, I guess, and instead of becoming Darth Egwene, she grows from it and she learns from it, and she comes out on the other side stronger, better, which I think is a good life lesson for anybody that's listening, anybody that's read the series, is to take those times in your life where shit gets hard, where stuff looks bad, where the dog shakes their head and ruins part of your podcast. Not ruins, but because she's adorable. And if you say my dog ruins stuff, we're going to have fisticuffs. But, and I don't know if y'all could hear her in the background, but she was like flapping around again. But when shit is going bad, then instead of letting it overcome you, overcome it. Learn from it, and instead of letting it use you, use it to further yourself and become better. And I think that's ultimately a lot of the lesson that Robert Jordan intended from the story that centers around Egwene.
And let me just say, for anybody who's listening who has gone through something horrific, yes, I think it is possible to overcome things and even in some way turn it to your advantage, but you shouldn't ever try to do that on your own. Like, if something as horrific as what happened to Egwene, or even close to that, happened to you, like, you better be talking to somebody about it, professionally preferably, but otherwise as well.
Yeah, because she talked to Nynaeve and Elaine and Avienda, and everybody helped her get through these times. Men, especially, you know, coming and visiting her during her captivity with the Shan-Chan. She didn't get through it on her own, and that's a very good point to make and everything. And I'm glad you made it. Awkward silence.
Yeah, dead airs always makes for good radio.
Hey, man, it makes it very easy to edit because there's no waveform.
Right. Does anybody else have anything they want? I don't want to end this with somebody holding back a final point.
No, I think I'm good. I think we covered most of it.
Yep,
All right.
I said what I came to say.
Awesome. We want to thank you guys for agreeing to come on with us. I know, speaking for myself, I am, a short time but big time listener of your guys' podcast. It really meant a lot that you said yes when we asked.
I think actually Legendarium was the first. Well, because initially Legendarium, you're the guys that reached out and said, "Hey, who's going to JordanCon? Who wants to do some stuff together?"
Yep, we're gonna be.
And you included us in the tweet, and I was like, "What? Yes."
Yeah, and we want to hear from everybody else too, and I'm sure you guys would as well. Are you guys going to JordanCon then?
I'm unfortunately not able to go this time. We just had a baby, and the vacation time didn't work out right, and
the money and all
that.
Yeah. But I was going to say, I'm sure that we'd all be happy to hear from anybody listening who is going to JordanCon. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, whatever. Let us know that you're going to be there. If there are enough people, podcast listeners, whether yours or ours or whoever, we should do a meetup or something one night after JordanCon.
I being Andrew, for those that haven't learned my voice yet, which kudos to you, because I wouldn't want to learn my voice either. I'll be there. I don't know if I'm going to do it the entire time, but I will be cosplaying of sorts. I'm kind of keeping it close to the chest. I mean, it's probably pretty obvious what it'll probably be, but I'm waiting on the jacket to come in. But and there's already a lot of stuff that you guys as listeners, whether it's our podcast or Legendarium or other podcasts, don't know about yet, as far as I've heard, that is in the works, that may happen, that probably will happen, that kind of stuff. I'm always down for a meetup. If you come up to me and say you're a fan of the Black Tower podcast, I'll probably be more shocked than anything else. Like, what? Do you know who I am? Like, oh God. But yeah, so Craig and Kyle, if you want to plug your website, your Twitter, any of that kind of stuff, feel free to do so now.
Hit us up at, you can go to the website, thelegendariumpodcast.com. What we've done there is organized all of our podcasts by series. So if you just want to listen to our Wheel of Time stuff, or if you just wanted to listen to the Sanderson or the Tolkien or the million other things we've done, you can do that there on the site. Obviously, we would love it if you subscribe. We're on all the major platforms. And that way you'll be able to follow along in a more chronological way. But the thing that we've done the most over the last couple of years, actually ever since we started Wheel of Time, is Reddit. So if you're not familiar with our Reddit community, hit up thelegendarium.reddit.com, and we do a ton of interaction there with listeners, and it makes for a really fun, interactive online book club kind of feel. So we hope that if anybody's listening and they don't know about us, that they'll check us out there. And we're on all the other major platforms too, so we'll see you there as well.
Awesome.
I'm on your website right now. Under the series, they've got Lord of the Rings, the Brandon Sanderson podcast series, Wheel of Time, the King Killer Chronicles, Red Rising podcast. Oh my God, I just don't know how to pronounce this. Silmarillion.
The Silmarillion. We've done some Silmarillion episodes. We've done stuff on Terry Pratchett and Robin Hobb and Dragon Files, The Gentleman Bastard. A lot of stuff that hasn't even made it on the site yet because I'm friggin' lazy.
Yeah, you got Chronicles of Narnia. You've got So Belgariad podcast series, you've got the Shannara podcast series, Heroes of Sci-Fi. Again, 212 episodes as of February 1st of 2019. If you can't find something to listen to, you're not looking hard enough. I mean, these guys are, as their name suggests, legendary. I've literally been waiting this entire recording to make that comment.
We'll take it.
Well, I was going to say that this, the chance to record with you guys has been Legendarium.
We're
dumb.
coming back.
Now it seems dumb.
We're done.
I did want to ask you guys quick, and you can shoot it down or tell me I'm dumb or whatever, but it seems like you guys have overlooked a series that I know is dear to my heart, but whatever. It's the Legend of Drizzt by R.A. Salvatore. I don't know if you guys have read it or not, but it's kind of a big chunk of the Forgotten Realms series.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if there's a plan for that in the future, or
so anytime you could bring up anything and ask, is there a plan for it in the future? And the answer is yes. There are so many things in our backlog that we ended up splitting our panel of 6 people into 2 so that we could cover more ground. Otherwise, like the Wheel of Time took us 14 freaking months to read, And so the answer is yes, we will get to it. In fact, I met Mr. Salvatore at Salt Lake Comic-Con, 3 years ago. Super nice guy. Made me really excited to get started on his series. So it's not in the immediate plan. Right now we're moving into Dune. And what's the other one?
Night Angel.
Night Angel. That's right. Brent Weeks' Night Angel series.
Nice.
And so we've got those ones coming up over the next few months. And then we're too dumb to plan that far ahead. So after that, who knows? We'll move on to some other stuff. But yeah, we're going to keep going with Dresden and keep doing Silmarillion episodes. But eventually, R.A. Salvatore on the list.
nice.
Definitely great stuff. Definitely, if you haven't checked them out, definitely go check out Legendarium Podcast. Like right now. As soon as this episode finishes, like right now.
Yeah, before we're done talking, go check it out.
Andrew, just cut off right here.
You want to plug our stuff real quick?
Yeah, got you. So, if you want to get in contact with us, Aaron and myself at the Black Tower Podcast, you can reach us on Twitter at Tower Podcast. You can tweet at us. You can send us messages. We answer both. If for whatever reason you do not want to listen to the podcast on a podcasting app, you can find us on YouTube at Black Tower, one word, podcast. You can also search the episode titles and they'll pop up. You'll see our typical icon. You can also find us on Facebook at the Black Tower Podcast. We have our own page on there as well. If you wish to email us, you can do that at blacktowerpodcast@gmail.com. For any of these links or whatever you can go to blacktowerpod.podbean.com, and it has links to our Twitter, our YouTube, the Facebook, the Discord server that we share with White Tower Podcast right now, and our Patreon as well. So we love hearing from you guys, viewers, anybody, co-creators, whatever have you. We love hearing from you. We love getting emails. We love getting tweets. Whatever it is, do not hesitate. Comment wherever you want. Say whatever you want. And if it's appropriate, we'll respond as much as we can. But, it's a free world. The internet, I consider it a free country, even though it's not a country. But, say what you want. We do love hearing from you guys. We will respond if we can, when we can, as soon as we can. So, yeah, did I sound good enough there?
Yeah, you rambled a little bit at the end, but I'll allow it.
I tend to ramble here and there. Rambling is a good element of any podcast.
I want to do something here at the end that we don't normally do, and that's that I want to plug our next episode because I just think it's going to be special and a little bit different than what we normally do. But
do it.
Coming up next week, sometime between now and next week, we are going to but over the internet. We're going to have Michael Kramer and Kate Redding are going to be on, and we're going to do like a non-Wheel of Time centered interview with them. And that is also going to be that's my fangirl moment, is to sit and talk with them a little bit.
You know what you should definitely bring up? First of all, I'm super jealous. That sounds amazing. So that'll be a great episode. But Kate Redding was just tweeting about her distaste for people who speed up audiobooks. So you should grill her on that, because I always listen at like 1.5 speed, no matter what she says.
Well, yeah, I can't. I understand why people do it, but personally, I can't listen. It feels so unnatural that I can't listen to anything sped up. Podcasts, audiobooks, I just can't handle it. I'd rather cut it out and have it last longer than listen to it strangely.
No, not me. Wham bam. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, ma'am.
Or Michael.
Or Jennifer. I'm not sure which is her real name.
Pretty sure Jennifer is her real name, and Kate Reading is just her. I'm on audiobook, and I'm reading.
Yeah. So yeah, that's coming up next week, and we're excited for that. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Again, thank you to the Legendarium for coming on. For those of us here at the Black Tower, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Andrew.
And
is it my turn now?
Yeah.
Okay. And I was Craig at one point.
And I'm Kyle. Thanks for having us on, guys.
Yeah. And
our pleasure.
I'm going to end it here. This just fell apart.
Walk in the light.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.